For months, your daughter kept doing something so small that nobody thought it mattered. She would start a sentence like it was nothing, like she was only filling the silence, and then she would stop mid-thought, right at the part where the meaning lived. And every time she stopped, everyone around you did what people always do when a moment feels awkward. They helped her escape it. They laughed. They changed the subject. They answered the easy part. They pretended they understood what she meant so she wouldn't feel embarrassed. Someone would say, "Oh, she's just being funny," or "she's overthinking," or "kids notice everything and nothing." Even your soulmate did that at first. Not because they didn't care. Because the words sounded ordinary. Because your daughter never spoke like she was exposing a secret. She spoke like she was trying to nudge a door open without startling whoever was behind it. And the hardest part to explain is that your daughter didn't sound scared. She sounded careful. Like she was balancing two responsibilities at once, protecting what she knew, and protecting you from hearing it in the wrong way. There was one phrase she repeated more than once, in different forms, like she couldn't decide which version would land without being misunderstood. Sometimes she said it like a question. Sometimes she said it like a joke. Sometimes she didn't say it at all. She just looked at you when someone else spoke, like she was waiting for you to catch the one detail she couldn't point to directly. It always happened in the same kind of moment. A casual conversation. A mention of the future. Someone saying your name like it belonged in a place it hadn't been invited. And each time, your daughter would become different. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just tuned in. Like the room had changed temperature and she was the only one who noticed. You remember moments like that? Of course you do. Even if you didn't keep them. Even if you filed them away under, "Kids say strange things," and "that was random," and "she's probably tired." There was a day she asked you a question that didn't match anything happening around you. Do you think people can hear something once and still remember it years later? You smiled, because it sounded philosophical. Like something she'd heard in a video. Like she was trying out a grown-up thought. You answered lightly. But your daughter didn't smile back the way she usually did. She watched your eyes, not your mouth. She was checking whether your answer came from the version of you that speaks casually, or the version of you that recognizes what's actually being asked. Then she did what she always did. She let it go. She pivoted to something safe. And everyone took that pivot as proof that nothing was happening. But your soulmate started noticing something else. The pivots were too consistent. Your daughter wasn't forgetting. She was choosing. For months, your daughter kept doing something so small that nobody thought it mattered. She would start a sentence like it was nothing, like she was only filling the silence, and then she would stop mid-thought, right at the part where the meaning lived. And every time she stopped, everyone around you did what people always do when a moment feels awkward. They helped her escape it. They laughed. They changed the subject. They answered the easy part. They pretended they understood what she meant so she wouldn't feel embarrassed. Someone would say, "Oh, she's just being funny," or "she's overthinking," or "kids notice everything and nothing." Even your soulmate did that at first. Not because they didn't care. Because the words sounded ordinary. Because your daughter never spoke like she was exposing a secret. She spoke like she was trying to nudge a door open without startling whoever was behind it. And the hardest part to explain is that your daughter didn't sound scared. She sounded careful. Like she was balancing two responsibilities at once, protecting what she knew, and protecting you from hearing it in the wrong way. There was one phrase she repeated more than once, in different forms, like she couldn't decide which version would land without being misunderstood. Sometimes she said it like a question. Sometimes she said it like a joke. Sometimes she didn't say it at all. She just looked at you when someone else spoke, like she was waiting for you to catch the one detail she couldn't point to directly. It always happened in the same kind of moment. A casual conversation. A mention of the future. Someone saying your name like it belonged in a place it hadn't been invited. And each time, your daughter would become different. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just tuned in. Like the room had changed temperature and she was the only one who noticed. You remember moments like that? Of course you do. Even if you didn't keep them. Even if you filed them away under, "Kids say strange things," and "that was random," and "she's probably tired." There was a day she asked you a question that didn't match anything happening around you. Do you think people can hear something once and still remember it years later? You smiled, because it sounded philosophical. Like something she'd heard in a video. Like she was trying out a grown-up thought. You answered lightly. But your daughter didn't smile back the way she usually did. She watched your eyes, not your mouth. She was checking whether your answer came from the version of you that speaks casually, or the version of you that recognizes what's actually being asked. Then she did what she always did. She let it go. She pivoted to something safe. And everyone took that pivot as proof that nothing was happening. But your soulmate started noticing something else. The pivots were too consistent. Your daughter wasn't forgetting. She was choosing. It's weird when people talk like they already decided something. You glanced at her. Who talks like that? And your daughter hesitated. Not because she didn't know. Because she knew too many options were dangerous. She shrugged. Nobody. Just, people. Then she changed the subject to something completely unrelated and asked if you'd ever seen a certain kind of cloud. At the time, it felt like a child's mind wandering. Now your soulmate heard it differently. Now it sounded like a test. A gentle probe. A way of asking, "Are you noticing what I'm noticing?" Because your daughter wasn't trying to accuse someone. She wasn't trying to create a fight. She was trying to warn you about a dynamic. About something moving around you that wasn't being said in front of you. The next clue came from the most unexpected place, a conversation that had never been meant to matter. Someone mentioned a date, casually, like it was just a marker in time. A month. A specific week. Back then. And the person who already knew reacted again, almost invisibly, with the same quiet recognition. They didn't ask, "What happened then?" They asked, was that before or after? After what? They didn't finish the sentence. They didn't need to. Because the way they asked told your soulmate there was a timeline in their head, and they were trying to place you inside it. Your soulmate didn't confront them. They just watched. And when they watched, they noticed something that made their stomach go cold. Your daughter was watching too. Not like a child eavesdropping. Like a person monitoring a boundary. Then came the look. The look that only lasts a breath, but changes the meaning of everything once you know what you're looking at. Your daughter was speaking, something small, something harmless, when that person entered the room. Your daughter paused mid-sentence. Their eyes met. And for the smallest moment, something passed between them that wasn't friendly and wasn't fearful. It was acknowledgement. Not, do you know? More like, I see you still choosing silence. Your soulmate felt it even before they understood it. And the moment it ended, your daughter smiled too brightly, jumped back into her sentence, and performed normality like she'd practiced it. That's when your soulmate finally admitted the thought they'd been avoiding. Your daughter had spoken to this person before. Not necessarily a long conversation. Not a dramatic confession. But something had been exchanged, enough for understanding to exist between them. And that was impossible to ignore, because your daughter didn't treat many adults that way. She was open with people. She wasn't strategic. Unless she thought she had to be. Your soulmate began doing what people do when they love someone and they realize that love isn't enough, you also need clarity. They began collecting fragments. A question asked too casually. A name dropped in a conversation that didn't require it. A comment someone made about you that contained a detail they shouldn't have had access to. And then, at the center of the fragments, a single constant began to appear. A person nobody had been watching. Not the person who already knew. Not the person from your past your daughter kept referencing without saying their name. Not even the person connected to your present life who kept asking questions like they were building a case. Someone else. A quiet observer. The kind of person who is always there but rarely becomes the focus of a story. The kind of person people speak around because they assume they aren't listening. The kind of person whose job, position, or personality makes them background. And your daughter had described them once without describing them. He always asks questions like he already knows the answer, she said one day, buttering toast like it didn't matter. But he doesn't say the answer. He just waits. You asked, distracted, who? And she shrugged again. Just someone. Your soulmate remembered that moment and felt their chest tighten. Because it wasn't just someone. It was the one person who appeared at the edge of multiple moments, the edge of conversations where your future was mentioned in half sentences, where your name seemed to travel through rooms you weren't in. Your soulmate started paying attention to that observer. And once they did, they noticed the observer's skill, never being obvious. Always being present. Listening without appearing to listen. Asking ordinary questions but collecting extraordinary context. Like someone building a map from other people's casual words. Then something happened that shifted your soulmate from suspicion to certainty. A sentence. One sentence. The kind that slips out when a person forgets, for 1 second, that they're supposed to pretend they don't know. Someone said, "If it happens this time, it'll look different." And the observer nodded, without asking, different from what? Your soulmate almost stopped breathing. Because your daughter had said something similar weeks before, so casually that nobody gave it weight. What if it comes back differently? At the time, it sounded like nothing. Like a child imagining the return of a TV show, a season, a friend who moved away. Now it sounded like the middle of a conversation your daughter was never supposed to be inside. Your soulmate began to see the shape of it. There was something unfinished in your life. Not a tragedy. Not a scandal. An unfinished decision. A path you once nearly took. A door you almost walked through, and then didn't. Most people think an unfinished decision disappears. But some decisions don't disappear. They go quiet. They wait in the background. And when life shifts, they sometimes return. Not as the same door, but as a different one built in the same wall. Your daughter had sensed that shift. She hadn't known the full details, but she had recognized the feeling of something circling back. And she had recognized something even stranger: other people recognized it too. People who shouldn't have. People who weren't there. People who didn't live inside your mind. Which meant the information wasn't coming from you. It was traveling through other connections. That's what terrified your soulmate at first. Not that there was an opportunity. Not that your past still had echoes. But that your name was being passed around with intention, like it belonged to a conversation you hadn't been invited into yet. And then your soulmate found the missing order. They had been assuming your daughter knew first and everyone else learned later. But what if she had been reacting? What if she had heard the middle of a chain and tried to protect you from being the last person to know you were being discussed? Your soulmate tracked it backward and discovered the first clear marker, the month your daughter kept mentioning. Not directly. Indirectly. Was that before the heat wave? She asked once. Was that the month we changed the curtains? She asked another time. It sounded like a child trying to remember small life details. But your soulmate now recognized what she was doing. She was trying to anchor a timeline without revealing why she needed one. Because that month was the month you almost made a different choice. The month something almost began. The month you walked away, not because you didn't want it, but because something essential wasn't there yet. And according to the fragments your soulmate gathered, that missing piece might exist now. That was why the conversations were happening. That was why the observer's questions mattered. That was why the person who already knew never looked surprised. And that was why your daughter kept trying to bring you into it without forcing an interpretation. Because your daughter didn't want you to be pushed by nostalgia. She didn't want you to be cornered by other people's certainty. She wanted you to arrive at the truth yourself, so your decision would still belong to you. Then came the second person. The one your daughter never mentioned. Not because they weren't important, but because naming them would have collapsed the whole thing into a single assumption. Your daughter didn't want assumptions. She wanted awareness. Your soulmate only discovered the second person by accident. A passing comment at the edge of a conversation. A name spoken too softly. A reference to when they met her. Your soulmate asked, carefully, "Who's her?" Someone waved it off. Nobody. But the way they said "nobody" sounded like fear of making it real. So your soulmate did something that changed everything. They asked your daughter directly. Not, "What are you hiding?" Not, "Who did you talk to?" But, "What were you trying to make me notice?" Your daughter looked down at her hands. And for a moment, she looked exactly like what she is, a child carrying a weight she didn't ask for. Then she said, "I wasn't trying to make you notice what I know. I was trying to make you notice what they know." Who? Your daughter didn't answer the way adults answer. She didn't give a name. She gave a feeling. "The one who listens like they're counting," she said. "The one who never asks the questions people ask when they don't know." Your soulmate felt the room tilt. Because that was the observer. Your daughter continued, carefully, like each word had to be placed in the correct order or it would collapse. "I heard them talking," she said. "Not like whispering. Just like they forgot I was there. And they said your name like it was already in the file. Like it was already on the list." Your soulmate asked, "What list?" Your daughter swallowed. "I don't know. That's why I didn't say it. Because I didn't know what it was, and I didn't want to tell you wrong." That sentence alone would have changed everything, but your daughter wasn't finished. "And when I asked questions," she said, "they watched you. Not me. They watched you like they were trying to see if you'd become the person they remembered." Your soulmate sat very still. Because that was the first moment the story stopped being about gossip or secrets and started being about something more human and more dangerous. Expectation. People expecting you to be a version of yourself from a different time. People preparing an invitation, but measuring you against memory. That's when your soulmate understood the quiet cruelty of even good secrets. Even an opportunity can become a cage if it arrives wrapped in other people's projections. Your daughter had sensed that. And she had tried to protect you from it the only way a child can, by refusing to complete a story she couldn't verify. Then your soulmate discovered the missing piece that made the entire chain click into place. It wasn't a dramatic reveal. It was a reaction to a detail so small nobody else would have remembered it. Someone mentioned something you had once considered privately, so privately that only a few people could have known. Not a dream you announced. Not a plan you posted. A sentence you said once, years ago, when you thought nobody was collecting it. And the person who already knew didn't ask, "How do you know that?" They smiled, almost sadly, and said, "So it's still true." Still true. Your soulmate walked away from that conversation with their heart pounding, because still true meant the person wasn't learning. They were checking. Your soulmate replayed the words again and again until a new possibility emerged. One they didn't want to believe because it implied something too intimate about the network around you. Someone had remembered you longer than you realized. Someone had kept a sentence you forgot you said. And that sentence had become a key. Then, finally, your soulmate found the name that started the movement in the present. Not the observer. Not the person who already knew. Not the person from your past. A current connection, someone tied to your life now. Someone who had no reason to carry your unfinished chapter, yet somehow had become the first spark in a new conversation. Your soulmate expected an explanation when they finally spoke to this person. Instead, they received a question. Has anyone actually asked what they want? That was the moment your soulmate stopped being afraid of the chain and started being afraid of what the chain could do if it kept moving without you. Because it's one thing for people to discuss your potential. It's another thing for people to build momentum around your life while forgetting the only thing that matters, your voice. Your choice. The person connected to your present continued, and every word made your soulmate feel both relieved and furious, relieved because the intention sounded careful, furious because the process had still happened without you. There isn't a plan, they said. There's only a possibility. But people keep talking about it like it's inevitable, and it's not. It can't be. Not without them. Your soulmate asked, why now? And the answer was so simple it almost felt like betrayal. Because someone recommended them. Recommended. As if you were a candidate. As if your life could be submitted like a name on paper. Your soulmate asked the obvious question. Who? When the name was spoken, it didn't land immediately. It wasn't the observer. It wasn't the person who already knew. It wasn't your past. It was someone outside the chain. Someone who wasn't supposed to matter here. And yet your daughter had said their name once, only once. And right after saying it, she had watched your face like she was trying to see whether you remembered who they were. You hadn't reacted. You hadn't recognized. So she had let it go. Not because it didn't matter. Because she realized it mattered too much to force. Your soulmate's skin went cold as they realized what that meant. Your daughter wasn't guessing. She had been testing recognition. She had been checking whether you would connect the final dot on your own. And when you didn't, she chose to wait rather than risk turning the truth into a rumor. Your soulmate finally understood the hidden intelligence in your daughter's silence. She wasn't withholding to control you. She was withholding to protect you from the wrong story. Because she knew the easiest thing in the world is to misunderstand something you're emotional about. The hardest thing is to wait until the right moment when you can hear it clearly. Then your soulmate uncovered the condition. The person who recommended you had given one condition when they offered your name. Not a demand. Not an attempt to steer you. A protection. If it reaches them, they had said, don't use their past to persuade them. Your soulmate stared when they heard that. Because that condition was rare. Most people use the past like leverage. They use memory like a rope. This person didn't want that. They wanted the you of now to decide without being haunted by the you of then. And suddenly, your daughter's behavior made sense in a way that almost made your soulmate's throat tighten. Your daughter had been doing the same thing without anyone telling her to. She refused to tell you a story that would trap you inside an expectation. She kept trying to bring you to the edge of the conversation without pushing you through it. Your soulmate began to see the symmetry. Multiple people protecting the same boundary from different angles. Then came the detail that changed the emotional temperature of everything. Your soulmate found out why you were recommended in the first place. It wasn't because of what you could give someone else. It wasn't because someone needed you. It was because someone had seen you, once, long ago, in a moment you probably forgot, and the impression stayed. Not the impression of your talent. The impression of your character. The way you handled responsibility when nobody was applauding. The way you stayed calm when other people panicked. The way you chose the harder right thing over the easier popular thing. You walked away from that moment and moved on with your life. But the person who witnessed it didn't move on. They carried it like evidence. And when a new opportunity appeared, something that needed a certain kind of person more than it needed a resume, that memory rose to the surface. And your name came with it. The chain started moving not because your past came back to chase you, but because your present self resembled the kind of person the moment required. That's why this story is so hard for people to understand. Because everyone assumes the past is the engine. But in your case, the engine was the way you grew. And the past was only a map. Then your daughter did something that made your soulmate realize she had been holding an even deeper layer. She revealed she knew when the next conversation about you was going to happen. Not a vague, soon. A specific day. A time. She even knew who would be there. Your soulmate asked, "How do you know?" And your daughter answered without drama. "Because I asked." That stopped your soulmate. Because your daughter doesn't usually ask adults big things. She observes. She hints. She waits. But now she had asked. Which meant something had shifted inside her. Something had crossed from "I'm not sure" into "I have to make sure." Your soulmate asked who she had spoken to. Your daughter named the person everyone had misunderstood at the beginning, the person who reacted with recognition. The person who seemed like a background character until your soulmate noticed their face. Your daughter said, "I thought they were deciding for you." Your soulmate's heart tightened. And they said nobody is deciding, your daughter replied. They're preparing to ask. They're trying to do it in the right way. In the right way, your soulmate repeated, tasting the words. Your daughter nodded. They kept saying, "We can't pressure them." They kept asking if you'd be comfortable. Comfortable. Not convinced. Not impressed. Not persuaded. Comfortable. That one word rearranged the morality of the whole story. Because comfort is what you care about when you see someone as a person, not as an outcome. Then your daughter added the line that made your soulmate sit back like they'd been hit with air. And they said something else, she whispered. What? They said, "If they say no, it has to be okay." That sentence doesn't sound shocking until you understand how rare it is for people to build a possibility around someone and still respect the possibility of rejection. Most people call it respect, but they mean compliance. This wasn't that. This sounded like an invitation with a real exit door. And your daughter, who has been misunderstood for months, had been trying to tell you exactly that. Not, people are talking. Not, people know something. But, people are preparing to approach you, and how they approach you matters. Your daughter wasn't protecting a secret. She was protecting your experience of being invited. Then your soulmate learned the twist that made the entire chain bigger than anyone expected. Someone additional asked to join the upcoming conversation. A new person. A person with no old memory of you. No unfinished chapter. No nostalgia. No connection to your past. And that was precisely why their presence mattered. Because they could only see you as you are now. Your daughter said, they noticed something. What? They noticed you changed. Changed. Not dramatically. Not overnight. In a way only someone paying attention could see. A small decision you made recently, something everyone else would call ordinary, had shown this person that you no longer choose the way you used to choose. Your priorities are different. Your boundaries are different. Your definition of success is different. And that person asked the question nobody else had asked out loud. Would the new version of them even choose what the old version wanted? When your soulmate heard that, the story stopped being a circle. It became two roads meeting. One road carrying memory. The other road carrying evidence of growth. And your daughter had been standing at that intersection, trying to tell you.